The notification vibrated against the granite countertop at 6:45 in the morning. It wasn't a call. My father, Thomas, didn't call unless someone was in handcuffs or the bank was threatening to seize the marina. It was a text. 3 lines that erased 30 years of loyalty in a heartbeat. Robert, we're taking the jet to Aspen early this year. Just the core family. Mia needs a stress-free environment, and your intensity ruins her vibe. We'll text you when we're back next week. I stared at the screen. The coffee in my hand didn't shake. I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel the urge to beg. I felt a cold, mechanical click in my brain, like a revolver hammer locking back. Core family. That was the trigger. Mia was 24. She was my father's assistant turned fiancée, 8 years younger than me. My sister Kate, the 29-year-old lifestyle entrepreneur who hadn't paid a bill since the Bush administration, was the golden child. They were the core. I was just the wallet, the fixer, the guy who made the wire transfers when Thomas's investments turned out to be Ponzi schemes. I set the mug down. I didn't reply. I opened my laptop. My fingers flew across the keyboard. I didn't go to Instagram to check their location. I went straight to the county foreclosure auction site, specifically the listing for Wolf Creek Lodge. For 6 months, Kate had been posting photos of the place, captioning them, "Daddy's surprise for me," and "Future HQ for Kate's Creative." She had already picked out the curtains. Thomas had promised to buy it for her, using the family trust, claiming it was a diversified asset. They were supposed to close the deal on Monday, but Thomas was lazy. He liked the idea of buying things more than the paperwork. He had stalled the bank for weeks, assuming his last name was enough to hold the property. It wasn't. I logged into my private holding company's account. I bypassed the rainy day fund. I bypassed the retirement fund. I went straight to the nuclear option liquidity I'd been stockpiling since I realized my father was a leech in a tailored suit. Price, $850,000. Immediate buyout, cash. I didn't hesitate. I didn't blink. I hit execute. The screen loaded for a second, the longest second of my life, and then flashed green. Transaction successful. Title transfer. Initiated. I wasn't going to Aspen. I was going to Wolf Creek. And I wasn't going as a guest. I was going as the landlord. 2 hours later, I was in my Raptor, cutting through the interstate snowstorm like a guided missile. I drove past the exit from my father's estate. I pictured them packing their designer luggage, laughing about how they'd finally cut the downer out of the trip. They thought they were punishing me. They thought silence was a weapon they could use to make me fall in line. They didn't realize that silence is where I do my best work. I'm a forensic auditor for high liability corporate restructuring. Sounds boring, right? It's not. When a cartel uses a shell company to buy a shipping lane, or a CEO tries to hide $50 million in assets before a divorce, they call me. I hunt ghosts in spreadsheets, I find the rot, and I cut it out. For 3 decades, I'd been blind to the rot sitting at my own dinner table. I pulled up to the gates of Wolf Creek Lodge just after noon. The property was massive 400 acres of Wyoming timber and jagged rock. The main house was a beast of timber and glass, sitting dark and cold against the tree line. It looked abandoned. It looked perfect. I got out. The wind hit me like a physical blow, 30 degrees below zero. I loved it. It felt clean. Leaning against the heavy oak front door was a hand-painted sign, decorated with glitter and frantic cursive. "Reserved for Kate. Keep out!" I didn't take it down. I ripped it off the wood and snapped it over my knee. The sound cracked through the valley like a gunshot. I tossed the splinters into the snow and unlocked the door with the digital code the bank had emailed me. The air inside was stale, smelling of pine and old money. I didn't take a tour. I didn't admire the view. I went to work. I wasn't here to vacation. I was here to fortify. I spent the next 6 hours installing the hardware I'd brought in the truck. This wasn't standard home security. This was commercial-grade denial of access. I replaced the decorative brass locks with heavy-duty deadbolts that anchored 3 inches into the frame. I drilled wide-angle 4K cameras into the eaves, hiding the wiring behind the gutters. I set up motion sensors on the perimeter of the driveway. By sunset, the lodge wasn't just a house. It was a trap. I sat in the dark living room, the only light coming from the fireplace I just lit. I opened my family ledger. It was a spreadsheet I'd kept for 10 years. Every loan Thomas asked for, just until the deal closes. Every credit card bill of Kate's I paid off, because she's just finding herself, Robert. Every emergency that turned out to be a gambling debt or a botched investment, total. $4,200,000. They called me cheap because I drove a truck and wore non-designer jeans. Meanwhile, I had effectively bought their entire lifestyle twice over. My phone buzzed. A text from Kate. "Hope you're not sulking, Rob. We're having mimosas on the jet. Dad says maybe we can do dinner in February. Don't be weird about it." Attached was a selfie of her and Mia, duck-lipped, clinking glasses. I didn't reply. I just saved the photo to a new folder on my laptop labeled Evidence. I closed the laptop and watched the fire. The silence of the empty house was heavy, but for the first time, it didn't feel lonely. It felt like leverage. 4 days passed. I stayed off social media. I didn't answer the 3 drunk calls from my father on Christmas Eve. I just waited. I knew they wouldn't go to Aspen for the whole week. They didn't have the attention span. Tuesday afternoon. The sensors tripped. My iPad chimed. Motion detected. South Gate. I checked the feed. A black Range Rover was tearing up the unplowed driveway, fishtailing in the snow. It wasn't the rental they usually got. It was Thomas's personal car. They weren't in Aspen. I watched them park right on the front lawn, crushing the landscaping I now owned. Thomas stepped out first, wearing a shearling coat that cost more than my first car. Then Kate, shivering in something fur and useless. Then Mia, looking bored, scrolling on her phone. They walked up to the porch like they owned the oxygen. "I'm telling you, the bank said the keys are under the mat," Kate whined, her voice tinny through the microphone on the camera. "I want to do the unboxing video before the sun goes down." "Relax, princess," Thomas said, puffing on a cigar. "It's practically ours. I told the VP I'm wiring the funds next week. He knows who I am." He didn't know who I was. Thomas kicked the snow off his boots and reached for the door handle. He turned it, locked. He frowned. He tried again, rattling it aggressively. "Damn it," he muttered. "Bank must have changed the tumblers early." "Well, break it," Kate snapped. "I'm freezing, Dad. You said this was my Christmas present." "Hold on," Thomas said. He walked back to the Rover. I zoomed in. He wasn't grabbing a phone to call a locksmith. He was grabbing a tire iron. This was it. The entitlement in its purest form. Thomas didn't see a locked door. He seen an error in the universe that he had the right to correct by force. He truly believed that laws were for poor people and boundaries were for employees. He marched back to the door, the steel bar heavy in his hand. "Stand back," he told the girls. He jammed the flat end of the tire iron into the door jamb. Crunch. The wood splintered. I sat in the kitchen, 30 feet away, sipping a glass of water. I didn't move. I needed the felony to be completed. Attempted breaking and entering is a misdemeanor. Actual burglary involving destruction of property? That's leverage. Thomas grunted, putting his whole weight into it. The new deadbolts held for a second, groaning against the pressure, but the frame itself gave way. With a loud snap, the door swung open. "There," Thomas said, tossing the tire iron onto the floor of my foyer. "We're in." "Finally!" Kate pushed past him, dragging her suitcase. "God, it smells dusty. Mia, call the cleaners. Tell them I want this place scrubbed before I start filming." Mia stepped inside, looking around with a sneer. "It's kinda rustic, Thomas. Are we sure about this?" "It's an asset, babe," Thomas said, wiping his muddy boots on the rug. "We flip it in 2 years, double the money. Plus, the trust pays for the maintenance. Free ride." They were already divvying up the carcass. I stood up. I walked out of the shadows of the kitchen hallway and into the foyer. "Actually," I said, my voice calm, echoing off the high ceilings. "The trust doesn't pay for anything here." The 3 of them jumped. Kate screamed. Thomas spun around, his face going from shock to instant, red-faced anger. "Robert," he barked, "what the hell are you doing here? You nearly gave Mia a heart attack." "I live here," I said. "Don't be an idiot," Thomas snapped. "We're scouting the property. How did you even know we were coming? Did you stalk Kate's location? Jesus, you really are pathetic." "Get out," Kate said, waving her hand dismissively. "This is my house. Dad bought it for me. Go stay at a Motel 6 or something." I leaned against the wall, crossing my arms. "Did he buy it, Kate? Did you see the paperwork?" Thomas stepped forward, puffing up his chest. The bully tactic. It had worked on me when I was 12. It didn't work now. "Enough games, Robert. I don't know how you got in, but you're trespassing. This property is under contract to the Rutherford Family Trust. Now, get your truck off the driveway before I call the sheriff." I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "Please, call him." Thomas paused. He blinked. He expected me to fold. I always folded. "You think I'm bluffing?" He pulled out his phone. "I'm the trustee, boy. I decide who steps foot on trust assets. You're done." He dialed 911. He actually did it. "Sheriff, Thomas bellowed into the phone. "This is Thomas Rutherford. I'm at the Wolf Creek Lodge. I have a trespasser who broke in. Yes, he's refusing to leave. He's unstable. Send a unit immediately." He hung up and smirked at me. "You have 10 minutes to run, Robert. After that, you're going to jail." "I'll wait," I said. The next 15 minutes were the longest of their lives and the most entertaining of mine. Kate tried to find a good angle for a TikTok, but couldn't get a signal. Mia complained about the cold. Thomas paced, lecturing me about loyalty and knowing my place. "You're jealous," Thomas spat. "You always have been. Kate has a vision. You're just a bean counter. You can't stand that I treat her like a star." "I'm not jealous, Dad," I said quietly. "I'm just solvent." Blue and red lights flashed through the front window. "Showtime," Thomas said, grabbing his coat lapels. "Watch and learn, son." Sheriff Miller walked in. He was a big man, 60 years old, looked like he was carved out of granite. He didn't look at Thomas. He looked at the splintered door frame. He looked at the tire iron on the floor. "Sheriff!" Thomas walked forward, hand extended. "Glad you're here. This is the individual I told you about. My son, unfortunately. He broke in, he's harassing my fiancée, and I want him removed." Miller ignored the hand. He looked at me. "You okay, Mr. Rutherford?" "I'm fine, Jim," I said. "Just a little drafty now." Thomas froze. "You know him?" "I know the owner," Miller said flatly. He turned to Thomas. "And you are?" "I'm the owner," Thomas shouted. "I'm Thomas Rutherford. This is trust property." "That's incorrect," I said. I picked up a manila folder from the hall table and handed it to the sheriff. Miller opened it. He scanned the deed. He scanned the bank transfer receipt. He nodded. "According to this," Miller said, looking at Thomas, "this property was purchased 4 days ago by Robert Rutherford, sole owner, no trust, no co-signers." Silence. Absolute suffocating silence. Kate stopped chewing her gum. Mia looked at the door. Thomas turned a shade of purple I'd never seen before. "That's a lie," Thomas sputtered. "He doesn't have that kind of money. I control the accounts. I have my own accounts, Dad," I cut in. "The ones you can't touch. The ones I didn't tell you about because I knew you drained them like you drained everything else." Thomas looked at the deed. He saw the timestamp. He saw the amount. $850,000. Paid in full. His face changed. The anger vanished, replaced by a slick, desperate charm. The salesman's switch flipped. "Rob," he laughed, a nervous hacking sound. "Rob. Okay, you got me. A prank, you bought it for us. A surprise. Wow. Kate, look, your brother bought the lodge for the family. That's incredible generosity, son." He stepped toward me, arms open for a hug. "I knew you were holding out. A tax write-off, right? Clever." I stepped back. "It's not for the family, Thomas. It's for me." Thomas stopped. "What?" "It's my house. You're not welcome here. None of you are." "You can't do that," Kate shrieked. "I already told my followers I was moving in. I have sponsors lined up." "Cancel them," I said. Thomas's eyes narrowed. "You ungrateful little... I made you. I raised you. You owe me this. After everything I've done. After everything you've stolen," I interrupted. I pulled another document from the folder. "Sheriff, I'd like to press charges for breaking and entering and destruction of property." "Now wait a minute," Miller said, hand resting on his belt. "Thomas, is this your tire iron?" "It's a misunderstanding," Thomas yelled. "He's my son. You can't arrest a father for entering his son's home." "I can when he pries the door off the hinges," Miller said. He unclipped his handcuffs. "Wait." Thomas backed up. "The trust. I'm the trustee of the Rutherford Family Trust. Robert is a beneficiary. If he arrests me, he violates the non-aggression clause in his grandmother's will. He'll lose his inheritance." He looked at me with a triumphant sneer. "Go ahead, Rob. Put me in cuffs. You lose the $2 million in the trust fund the second you do." I laughed. It was a dark, genuine laugh. "I brought a guest too," I said. I nodded toward the kitchen. Samantha walked out. She was my lawyer. She was also the shark who wrote the airtight amendments to my grandmother's trust 5 years ago, right before she died. Samantha adjusted her glasses and opened her binder. "Actually, Mr. Rutherford," she said, her voice crisp. "Clause 404, Section B. Any trustee who commits a felony on property owned by a beneficiary or attempts to defraud a beneficiary is immediately removed as trustee and forfeits all stipend privileges." Thomas went pale. That's not in there." "It was added when your mother realized you had a gambling problem," Samantha said coldly. By breaking into Robert's home, a felony to claim it as your own, you just fired yourself. And since you're no longer trustee, the control of the remaining assets reverts to the primary beneficiary. She pointed at me. Robert controls the trust now, Thomas. You're bankrupt. The sound of the handcuffs ratcheting shut was louder than the wind outside. Robert! Thomas screamed as Miller spun him around. Robert, fix this. Tell him to stop. I'm your father. I know, I said. That's why I changed the locks. They hauled him out. Kate was sobbing, screaming that her life was ruined, asking if she could at least stay the night because it was cold. There's a Motel 6 in town, I said. I hear they have vacancies. I closed the broken door as best I could and leaned a chair against it. Through the window, I watched the cruiser lights fade into the darkness. The Range Rover sat empty in the driveway. Kate and Mia were standing in the snow, calling Ubers that would take 40 minutes to arrive. My phone buzzed. A notification from the bank. Trust account. Access granted. Balance $12,400. He had drained almost all of it. I knew he had, but the money didn't matter. I walked to the fireplace and threw another log on. The sparks flew up the chimney. I poured myself a drink, the expensive scotch Thomas had left in the Rover, which I had liberated before the sheriff arrived. I took a sip. It tasted like victory. I wasn't the fixer anymore. I wasn't the safety net. I was the only thing left standing. I blocked their numbers, all of them. Then I sat back and listened to the wind howl against the glass, knowing it couldn't get in. For the first time in 29 years, I was warm.